The conversation around Prince Harry and Meghan Markle has once again found its way into public discussion, and this time it centers on remembrance, perception, and the delicate balance between private emotion and public expectation. It begins, as many royal stories do, with reflection on the life and legacy of Queen Elizabeth II, a monarch whose reign spanned over 70 years and whose presence shaped generations. For many, honoring her memory is not just tradition, but something deeply personal. And when it comes to family, especially ones so closely watched, even the smallest gestures can spark widespread conversation. Now, it's important to understand the context. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have, over the years, stepped into a very different role compared to their earlier royal life. Their decisions have often drawn attention, sometimes admiration, and at other times, criticism. But what remains consistent is the intense public interest in everything they do, especially when it relates to the royal family. Recently, reports surfaced suggesting that Prince Harry had arranged for flowers to be placed at the resting site of his late grandmother, located at St. George's Chapel. On the surface, it appears to be a simple, respectful gesture, something many people would do to honor a loved one. Yet, as with many things involving the Sussexes, the reaction has been anything but simple. The discussion isn't really about the flowers themselves. It's about perception. In today's world, where nearly every moment can be documented and shared instantly, people have come to expect visible proof of meaningful actions, especially from public figures. When something isn't seen, questions naturally arise, not necessarily out of suspicion, but out of curiosity shaped by a culture of constant visibility. At the same time, there's another layer to this story. Over the years, public narratives surrounding Harry and Meghan have become deeply polarized. Supporters often view their actions as sincere attempts to forge a new path, while critics sometimes interpret the same actions through a more skeptical lens. This divide means that even a quiet tribute, like placing flowers, can quickly become part of a much larger debate. And then there's the challenge of timing. Moments of remembrance, particularly those connected to significant milestones, tend to carry emotional weight. People look for unity, for shared respect, and for gestures that feel authentic and unifying. When those expectations meet an already complex public narrative, the result can be a swirl of interpretations that go far beyond the original act. But here's where the story becomes more human than royal. Imagine trying to honor someone you love deeply, knowing that whatever you do will be analyzed, questioned, and discussed by millions. Do you keep it private, risking that people might think you didn't do anything at all? Or do you make it public, knowing it might be seen as attention-seeking? It's a difficult position, one where every choice carries its own consequences. For Prince Harry, this is a particularly sensitive space. His relationship with his grandmother was often described as warm and supportive. Despite the changes in his role and location, that personal bond is something many believe remains strong. So, whether the tribute was publicized or quietly arranged, the intention behind it is likely rooted in something genuine, something that exists beyond headlines. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle continues to be a central figure in how these stories are interpreted. As a public personality with global recognition, her actions and presence often amplify attention, whether intended or not. This dynamic has, over time, contributed to the intense scrutiny surrounding the couple. Another aspect worth considering is how modern media operates. Stories no longer unfold slowly. They move fast, evolve quickly, and are shaped by countless voices across platforms. A single report can spark discussions that take on a life of their own, often blending fact, opinion, and speculation into something much larger than the original event. And yet, beneath all of this, there's a quieter truth. At its core, this isn't just a story about royalty or public image. It's about how people remember those they've lost. It's about the tension between private grief and public life. And it's about the challenge of navigating both in a world where visibility is constant and expectations are high. For viewers and readers, perhaps the most important takeaway is perspective. Not every meaningful act needs to be seen to be real, and not every unseen moment should be dismissed as absent. Sometimes the most genuine gestures are the ones that happen quietly, away from cameras and headlines. As the conversation continues, one thing remains clear. The legacy of Queen Elizabeth II continues to bring people together in reflection, even as it highlights the complexities of those who carry that legacy forward in their own ways. And maybe that's the real story here. Not the flowers, not the headlines, but the ongoing effort to balance memory, meaning, and modern life under the constant gaze of the world.